The other day, I put out a video on Exfil. It's a tactical FPS that essentially released a tech demo for $30 into early access. In the video, I ranted as this was the straw that really just broke the camel's back for me as somebody who has covered every single tactical FPS under the sun for the past 10 years on this channel. I think my statements were fair and my opinions were justified, but I'm tired of ranting and being angry about things that just aren't changing. And instead, I'd rather offer my community insight into why I feel like the tactical FPS space is kind of a fucking joke right now, where I think the core problems lie, and how I think aspiring and up-and-coming developers can fix it, as well as giving you a bit of insight as to why I'm falling out of love with this genre. In order to fix problems, you have to identify what they are, and I feel like angry ranting doesn't quite get the point across. So, let's get into it. The main problem that I have with the tactical FPS genre in the indie space is a lack of design philosophy. I can show you clips from a ton of different games: Ground Branch, Operator, Direct Contact, 0 Hour, Black One Blood Brothers. All of these games do one thing incredibly well, and that's customization. You can put rails on rails, sights on sights, foregrips, suppressors, character clothing, helmets, chest rigs. It's Barbie dress up for gravy seals, and they all do it incredibly well. The problem they run into is what happens next. Ground Branch puts you in missions where your sole objective is to kill everyone on the map. There may be a mode where you find a laptop, you click on it, you grab it. Like in Operator, they do that as well. Direct Contact is the same thing. 0 Hour has some really cool gadgets, but boils down to the same concept. You enter a map, kill everyone without any context, and you leave. There's no design outside of what the community labels as a sandbox, which usually means we give you environments to make your own fun, which to me is kind of a cop-out way of saying we didn't do anything to keep you entertained long term. Take Ground Branch, for example, a game with tons of gear, tons of attachments, and a handful of levels that are varied in size, setting, and more. You can customize the day that you enter, you can play at night, you can customize the amount of AI that are on the map, and then you go kill them. They could easily make a progression system in the game where you run missions, get ranks based on how well you do, which then unlocks attachments, cosmetic items like shirts or different colors of clothing, weapon charms, or anything that gives the player a sense of forward movement, striving to be the best, striving to run missions over and over again for a better rank, striving for something outside of logging in for 20 minutes and then leaving again until the next update a year from now. The main problem I have with 99% of these tactical shooters in the indie space is they focus so much on the details of their weapon models and attachments and forget about the game around it, playing dress up in levels that don't really have connection to anything. You log in and you see yet another oil platform, yet another forest map, yet another urban environment, but there's nothing tying them all together. You could write a story and add some lore about being a freedom fighter group, a special task force that is going up against an evil faction called, the Syndicate. Make logos, make gear sets for the AI that match the ongoing conflict. Create a collectible system that lets you analyze intel you grab that can then tell a story about why you're there and what these people are doing. Text and audio logs that could add a bit of lore to the game. Instead, we have 0 Hour, which is all about killing nameless, faceless bad guys with nothing else of note. There's no design to any of these games outside of the core gunplay and basic AI programming, which, don't get me wrong, is a lot of work. And for a limited amount of time is actually a really fun experience. Like the first time I played Ground Branch, I was blown away. I was like, this is fucking awesome. 0 Hour, same thing. The first time you play a new tactical shooter, it's like, wow, this is fucking, okay, this is pretty cool. Gunplay is good. The customization is sick. I like these maps. But after a while, that allure starts to fade. And that might be 20 minutes. That might be 40 hours. But regardless, most of these FPSs just end up collecting dust in my Steam library because there's nothing to drive you forward. There's nothing that makes you want to rerun a mission and get a better rating so that maybe I can unlock this or maybe I can do that. There's just no game. And to some people that's okay and more than enough. To me, it's exactly why all of these games are struggling to keep people entertained enough to log in. Like, imagine this scenario. Imagine you're playing Ground Branch, you log into the airplane map where you're tasked with infiltrating that grounded airplane on the tarmac. Why are you there? Imagine if you could kill a bunch of people in there, get in there, secure a black box that you can then take back to your bunker to analyze, which reveals who these terrorists are. And now that you have that intel, you unlock the next map, which is the forest map with the underground bunkers you have to infiltrate because that's where their leader is. All of this handled through text and audio that ties these things together in the loosest way possible, but is more cohesive than just picking any random map, going in and just killing faceless AI. I think 6 Days in Fallujah is actually doing this pretty well with their campaign where you're following the story of the war, going in and out of levels with cinematics in between. It makes me appreciate the game so much more when there's something of value for the player to strive, unlock, and work towards. And even in 6 Days in Fallujah, comparing the campaign mode to the other modes where you're just, again, choosing levels, going in, completing an objective, and leaving, I prefer the campaign because there's something of value there that you're getting outside of just logging in and shooty bad guy. And I wish more games would take this approach. And before you tell me that it's too hard to do for small indie teams, it's really not. You just have to plan for these things before you go in and develop. Sure, adding this stuff to Ground Branch now is going to be a pain in the fucking ass because they didn't plan for it, they didn't build for it. Adding this stuff to a game like 0 Hour is going to be a huge task if they wanted to go this route because they didn't build for it, they didn't plan for it, and like that's fine. I'm not asking for these games to do those things. Ground Branch, 0 Hour, all of those games do what they're doing incredibly well, but I think in 2024, going into next year, I think I just kind of want to see more come out of the tactical FPS space. There's so many opportunities to tell good stories, and I'm not talking about even doing like full-fledged cinematics because I know that costs money. There are ways you can do things just diegetically, grabbing objectives, having the text and the audio prompts, getting somebody to write, lore for the game. You guys could do so much with like storytelling elements that I think people are just not thinking about when they're planning out the game. They always focus on the weapons and the customization, and then everything else is just very empty. I think when Ready or Not went to 1.0 and we had the tablet that you could pop up that gives you a rundown, a detailed rundown of what the mission is, you get audio logs from the 911 calls, all of those things contribute to the overall experience that you're getting with the game. And I do feel like that is a contributing factor as to why Ready or Not is doing very well in comparison to a lot of these other tactical FPSs. Yeah, you can talk about the visuals. Yeah, you can talk about the polish, of course. But these are the things that take a game from feeling like an indie tech demo to an actual video game. And that's what I think is missing in the tactical FPS space. Yes, they are all classified as video games at the end of the day, but to me, there is a clear difference between a tech demo or a prototype or an alpha and an actual video game. And the game design is where I think a lot of these tactical shooters are missing the mark. And I also want to make it incredibly clear, I'm not making this video to shit on these games. These games delivered on what they said they were going to deliver on in terms of what they're putting out into early access. If you bought Ground Branch and you expected a fully fledged story with lore and all that stuff, Ground Branch never ever said that they were going to make a game like that. What they said they were going to make was essentially a sandbox where you can just play these missions, shoot AI, and if you're fans of that, there's nothing wrong with that. I was a fan of that at one point in time as well. I've covered all of these games for years, and I just think over the last couple of years, I have found myself kind of just like seeing the same kind of experiences drop every few months. We go in, they're in early access for years, and we're just kind of waiting for the game to be built. And I think I'm just kind of burnt out on tactical shooters that provide the exact same sandbox style game, but not a game kind of experience. And with most of these games outside of like the core staple ones that I think are still thriving, the Hell Let Looses, the Squads, the Ready or Nots, you can clearly tell that they're being made by very small teams who have very limited resources, who aren't going to get a game, from 0 to 100 in 2 to 3 years. These are all games being built by incredibly passionate individuals who will have to take years, maybe even a decade plus, to get the game to a 1.0 kind of looking state, and we don't even know what most of those games look like at that stage because they always release, in my opinion, way too early to get a gauge on what that actually looks like. As much as I love the guys at Blackfoot Studios and Ground Branch, and I'm sure they would agree with this statement that the development process of Ground Branch has been painstakingly slow. A game like Operator that is being made by one person, to get that game from feeling like it is a clunky tech demo to an actual fully fledged video game is going to take years and years. And if you were to ask me if I was confident that they would make it to the finish line, I can't say yes. I truly don't know. What I have learned over the past couple of years developing our own game development isn't linear. It's not like we're going to go and update every month and things just get better and better and better. There is always refinement. There is always refactoring of old code. There is always things that need to be done. This gets updated. It leaves these. These are depreciated. These need to get updated. It is very non-linear. And game development, like we've all known before, it is tough as fuck to get games from tech demo feeling to actual release. It is a process. And so with that said, I would say for up and coming and aspiring game developers who want to jump into the FPS space, please consider the gameplay loop itself on top of everything else that you want to focus on. I love when game developers jump into the fold. You can tell that they have fun doing the dress up, the gun customization, the rails, the attachments, all of these cool things that they enjoy about video games. But on top of it, you have to be able to create a gameplay loop that is satisfying enough to keep people around playing for longer than, like I said, a couple of hours. And if you can do that, dude, you're winning. And here's the thing. I know that there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this that have hundreds of hours in Ground Branch, have hundreds of hours in 0 Hour. Hell, I do too. But I think after so many years of the same thing amongst multiple studios, I'm looking for something a little bit more in depth in terms of the experience, in terms of the design. And that gameplay loop is one of the most important things that I think 99% of tactical indie FPS developers don't nail. And of course, there is a myriad of different conversations to be had about indies, FPS games in general, what we want to see out of it. Everybody's different. This is clearly just my opinion, but I'm always curious to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm frustrated at the tactical FPS space right now because as of right now, the kings that are on top are the games that have been on top for years now. The games like Squad, which came into Kickstarter in 2015, it has been the top dog in the tactical space for like 6-7 years. Hell Let Loose, what did that come out, 2019? Same fucking thing. Tarkov, I mean, that game was released in what, 2015, 2016? Still the same fucking thing. And yet we've had a myriad of other games come out at the time that come out, they look cool, they look promising, we jump in for a period of time, and then they fade away. And then the only games that you have left, that if you're looking for like a community of people that play these games, it's the Tarkov, it's the Squad, it's the Hell Let Loose. I'm waiting for something more. And here's the thing. I do think that there are games like Arena Breakout Infinite, like Delta Force, that provide incredible experiences. But those games have another layer of problems that the gaming community is calling out that maybe we should talk about in a future video. For me, I wanted to talk about why I've been not really talking about games like 0 Hour, Ground Branch, Operator, which I think I covered once before it came out and then just never went back because there really hasn't been a reason for me to go back. And I get asked about it. I get asked why I don't talk about these games more often and why my content has kind of shifted over the past couple years. I like talking to you guys about things I care about. And honestly, man, the tactical indie space right now it doesn't have my attention. And I hope this video kind of clarifies the reason why. I'm looking to put my time into something and enjoy myself and work towards stuff and earn stuff and unlock stuff and have a gameplay loop that is rewarding. And these games just don't do it for me anymore. Let me know what you guys think. While you're down there, leave a like on the video and subscribe for more FPS content. I would say more tactical FPS content, but it just ain't hitting right now. My name is BigfryTV. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.